Today on the show, we have Stephen Cozza with the Cozza Team in Sonoma, Marin County, and the North San Francisco Bay. Let me tell you more about Stephen and his team. Now, Stephen spent a decade racing bikes professionally in Europe. As a former elite professional cyclist, Stephen has the mental stamina, tenacity, and brilliance to make buying and selling process an attainable reality for his clients. Stephen excels in the local market with buyers and sellers and surpasses the yearly sales average of Sonoma and Marin County realtors. Now, native to the area, he's a valuable resource with his never give up attitude paired with the compass go above and beyond standard. Stephen gives his clients 120% of his efforts. From urban condos to countryside estates, Stephen treats each property with premium marketing services and a precisely focused strategy. Please follow him and his team at Cozza Team. That's Cozza team.com. And also on social, this Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Cozza Team is the handle. We will have links to the social channels as well as cozzateam.com in our show notes. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, DJ. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're excited to have you. And really, I always love what's such a neat part of this job for me, or this, I don't know if it's really a job so much as just a fun thing for me to do, but I get to have conversations with not only people that I think would be interesting to our audience, which of course is the ultimate goal, but interesting to me as well. And I have always been fascinated by people that perform at high levels, whether it's in business, sports, any field really. I'm just always drawn to what I consider to be a sort of excellence and skill, and so I'm excited to chat with you and how you were able to take some of those learnings from your previous career as an athlete. But let's start all the way at the very beginning. Number one, how'd you get into real estate, or why real estate?
Yeah, totally. Well, I got into this is kind of funny. I became a professional athlete through cycling, and when I was in school, I never did well in school. I'm dyslexic, and I struggled there. So I always excelled in sports. It was just where I gravitated to. And my dad grew up in baby boomers. Got to go to college. Got to go to college. So it was pretty tough for me to break out of that mold, but it was an avenue for me to not have to go to college, so to speak. So I really busted my butt to make it as a professional athlete. I raced in Europe for 10 plus years, and that's what kind of led me into my real estate career in a weird way because my mom would always say, invest in a 401k, from my cycling, invest, it's your retirement, it's your retirement. And I said, Mom, I don't even own a house. Why would I put money into a 401k? I don't, I don't have a place to live. I'm renting, so I said, I'm going to save to buy a house. So I said, forget the 401k for a while. I saved, bought my first house, and then just kept going from there. And I started buying more properties, rentals, all while I was racing. Um, so it was kind of an easy transition from when I left cycling to move into a role of wanting to help others do what I had done with real estate. And yeah, so that's how I got into it. And little did I know how much cycling would actually help me with my career in real estate. It's quite incredible. And I look forward to about that a bit today.
I'm excited to hear about that too. I'm also curious, just because cycling was, I'm 47, and so maybe it's an age thing, but I grew up in Central Illinois, where that just wasn't a sport. It may have been a sport, but it certainly wasn't a known thing where there was like, oh, that's an option. There was football,
Yeah.
baseball, basketball. If you were lucky, you had some maybe tennis and golf if you had the ability to do those kind of sports, or hockey also is in that category, but cycling just wasn't really known to me other than what I would see on TV. So just out of curiosity, how did you even sort of pursue being a professional cyclist? Was that something you knew from an early age that you wanted to do? Was that
Yeah.
popular in where you grew up? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, I played ball sports, baseball, soccer, and then got into cross country running in high school. I realized I wasn't so good at the ball sports, better at the endurance sports. And during my running years, my friends got me to start mountain biking, and I would take my mom's mountain bike, and before I knew it, I broke it, and she's like, all right, let me get you your own mountain bike. And then they really supported me. I started doing races, started winning. And then in '97, when Lance won his first Tour de France, I said, "Oh my gosh, I got to do that." I broke my shoulder in a wrestling accident in high school, and I had to ride on the road for a year. And I transitioned over from there and got on the national team. So that's kind of how I got into it. Moved from ball sports to cycling sports. So
Wow, it's
yeah,
that's amazing. And I guess you're right. When Lance did win, he became the biggest athlete in the world, pretty much, or one of them. And so you're right.
for
That
sure.
that really brought, cycling more to the forefront of the average, person in this country's awareness of like, oh, this is a thing, and this is a thing
Yeah,
where, you can have a lot of success, and here's this American just crushing it. So yeah, I was
totally.
curious. Well, that's amazing. So
And I,
so you get
I
go
remember
ahead.
to go back to that. I remember there was a friend of mine whose dad was a big cyclist. He told me one day I was like 15 years old. He said, "Steven, only one in a million can become a professional cyclist." Like and that always got me when someone told me I couldn't do something. So at that moment, I decided, well, I'm going to prove them wrong, and it kind of rolled over into real estate with that same kind of attitude because real estate is a very hard career to make it in. I mean, I never knew it was as hard as it is. Now that I'm in it, I realize it. But when you hear about you see all these agents posting all their open houses and making money here and there, you think it's a lot easier than it is once you're in it. So you got to have that tenacity. Yeah,
Yeah, I always think like by the time you have a showing or you have a buyer, you've almost already won the hardest part of the business, which is getting clients and getting them to
totally,
trust you in that purchase or sale. So
absolutely,
I think you're so right that we, especially on this show too, I have to be very careful because when I talk to really successful teams or agents like yourself, well, you have both. There, could be a tendency for one of our listeners or a lot of our listeners to think like, well, he's already over the hump of like the hardest part of this business, and not realizing that maybe the lead generation part becomes a little bit easier over time as you build up a reputation and you get more referrals and you figure out what marketing strategies work. But it's still certainly a grind, in a way, meaning like you still have to put in the reps and the hours into this, probably in a lot of the same ways that you did when you first started. So I'm excited to learn
totally.
about what you learned as an athlete, and then taking some of those lessons into real estate. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. So, real when you jump into real estate, there's different routes you can go. You can get on a team. You can try to maybe you inherited the business, or maybe you're working with a parent. Um, I didn't have any of that. I mean, actually, my mom works with me now. She was a teacher for 40 years, taught kindergarten, and when she retired, I said, "Hey, come join our real estate team." And she's great. It's like she's total natural at it. So it's kind of the reverse of what you normally see. Um, but you have these different routes to take, and when you get on a team, some being on a team is a great thing. It's you get a lot of support, but sometimes you don't learn how to necessarily you don't learn the process of always how to get your own business.
Yeah.
And when I went to it was Frank Howard Allen at the time. It was the biggest brokerage in the Bay Area. They were around since from 1910 to like 2000 and I think probably 16. So they were around for a long time. So I joined Frank Howard Allen, but when I interviewed with the when I met the manager Jim Michelson, who's actually still the manager of our office today with Compass now. Um, I didn't know anything about real estate at all. I'd gotten my license, which doesn't really teach you what you really need to know in the business. And so I remember Jim told me later on, he talked to the manager of Frank Ireland, and Larry goes, "Why would you take on a professional athlete? He's not going to be a good." And Jim goes, "Are you kidding me? If he could be a professional athlete, then he can be a good real estate agent." And Jim was right. And I think that, like a lot of the listeners today, something to understand, and we're always getting pounded over the head with every shiny whistle and every shiny bell and whistle of this product or this system or this process. But I think it's important to kind of get back to the basics of what makes a good real estate agent And I studied this when I first got in the business because I studied the best in the business in our area, and I was like, how are they doing this? What makes them so good? And I remember I went to talk to the best realtor in our town year over year for the she still is for like 40 years. Um, and I said, "Hey, Peg, how do you do it? Like, what are you doing? What's your secret?" And she said, "You know what, Steven? There's really no secrets except for this one thing." And she said, "Consistency." She's consistent. She's consistent with everything she does. And that really stuck with it for me because that's how it was as a professional athlete. It's consistency and it's following a process. It's following a plan and it's having a coach. I can't stress how important it is to have a coach. And maybe you're not in a position to where you're quite ready to pay for a coach. I think it's a great investment that gets a great return. But keep listening to Keeping It Real podcast, things like this. That is your coach. I mean, you can get carried away with too many things, going after too many things. So keep your focus when you're listening to different podcasts, but have a plan and have a plan that keeps you accountable. And so if anybody listening today wants to have we have a all our agents on the team, they follow it's our power hour tracker. And sometimes it goes more than an hour a day, but it has the key elements to our success built into it. And then it makes it so that we stay focused during that hour to achieve those things. And then from there, it's like you work with your clients, you're showing properties and so forth, but you start with this. And from there, that's where all your success comes from. So it's our power hour tracker. I'm happy to share that. But to go back to about from cycling to real estate, I'm very lucky in the fact that I was able to have a career such as cycling because it did give me a little bit of an advantage with knowing you can work your butt off and still get no results. You can pound your head against the wall and still not win a race. Same thing with real estate. And the best real estate agents out there, they're the best at getting back up because they know the sooner they get back up, the sooner they're going to have their next success. And then they're going to analyze what they did wrong as they go. So I obsess over listing presentations. I could not stand how many I lost in the beginning because, I'm competing against like Peg and so forth. And now I don't lose them. I mean, I just got another one where I was competing against, the top agent in the town and I get him at 6%. Sometimes I get him at 7%. So it's just it's that whole coaching athlete mentality where you're tweaking what's going on, you're working with the plan, you're making it better year after year, and you're improving on it and the best you can, and not getting down when you get knocked down because let's face it, real estate can be a losing sport. And it's not easy. It's very hard, but there's a lot of rewards that come with that hardness, and there's a lot of positives. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. Um,
I have
Another
a
thing that's in
couple things I
oh
want
yeah,
to pause on only
I
because
can
I
go
was
on
taking
forever.
notes. Oh, no, no, no. You were doing perfect. I had a bunch of thoughts as you were talking because you said a lot of really, really great things there. And I just want to make sure that we
For sure.
pause and step on them for a little bit for the audience. First of all, you mentioned sharing your power hour information. What's the best way that
Yeah,
one of our listeners, and by the way, everybody should do this right now. So I want to say it before I forget. What's the best way they
yeah,
could reach out to get that information?
for sure. Yeah, just email me at scozahomes.com. That's the best way. You can email me, and we'll get it right back to you. So,
Great. We'll have a link to that in the show description and notes as well. Also, this idea of being coachable. It's something that I the times I've had athletes on the show like yourself, they've all said this, and it's really important. We sort of forget that every professional athlete. I can't think of an exception to this. There probably is one or two, but 99% of professional athletes have coaches, right? Maybe it's
total,
100%, but certainly even the
total.
most elite, the people at the very, very, very top of that whatever mountain, particular mountain they're climbing, they still have somebody
Totally.
watching, going, "Oh, maybe do this instead of that, and stay on target." And one of the things that reminded me, you talked about getting a coach, and I just wanted to share this suggestion as well. What if I can't afford a coach right now? And I know there's always that you can't afford not to. Okay, that's fine. But sometimes people literally just can't afford to do it. And so I was thinking of a story Brian Buffini would tell when he couldn't afford to have a coach or couldn't find one. He and actually was a guy here in Chicago. He befriended this guy in Chicago, Joe Niego, and they were each other's accountability partner. And every day they would call each other at night and go, "Did you win the day?" And they had their own, sort of whatever winning the day meant to both of them. And so that was a free thing that they did. And you can certainly
Totally.
at least find somebody in your local market to help with that. But ideally, hiring a coach would be sort of even better than that. I did want to mention just a couple other quick things. I definitely want to ask you about any listing presentation suggestions you might have. We won't go to that quite yet, but I definitely want to hear, how you've become better because you obsess about those. But I also think back to the athlete thing. This idea of failing is so scary to us, right? We're afraid of it. It's the reason why we don't pick up phones and make certain phone calls. It's the reason that probably holds us back because nobody likes to be rejected. No one likes to fail. Athletes, though, get a lot of experience not winning because, of course, that's the pathway to winning is actually failing. And so, how important is it to be able to take the L and and to not let it defeat you? And as you said, it's about getting back up. But how important is it to learn how to get comfortable taking the loss every so often?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, it's not an easy thing to get comfortable with. It's hard, but the way I look at it, when I have a loss, I look at what I can do differently, and then use it as a positive because you learn from your losses. If you don't have your losses, you're not learning, and nothing comes easy. I mean, well, in cycling, professional sports, there's always the dopers and stuff, the people who are going to cheat in real estate. And by the way, I never took performance enhancing drugs. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't need to be selling real estate. but it does happen, and with real estate, there's no quick way to the top. So you're going to lose, and if you are like on a team and they're giving you all the leads, you're never going to learn how to get them yourself. And if you ever want to go somewhere else, you're not going to have that. So I would say the only way is the hardest way in real estate, and it's worth it. And through podcasts like this, you're going to learn the systems and processes that help you faster and in a better way. So
Well, thank you. By the way, I also forgot to say thank you so much for the wonderful plug you gave just a little bit ago to our show. I am
yeah,
too humble sometimes to even ask for our audience to participate here with our show, but I appreciate you seeing the value in this and also being of service to our audience and sharing. But yeah, I'm sorry. Go
excellent.
back to sort of being an athlete. So we understand you have this you were talking about consistency and we can certainly dive into what does that actually look like for you. What are the key
Totally.
Actually, let's just start there. What are the key behaviors or activities that are the ones you need to be the most consistent on even today? Are those essentially
Totally.
similar to when you started or have they changed over time?
That's a great question. So what does consistency mean? What are the activities and so forth, and how have they changed? So I would say for us, for me, for the team, for actually every real estate agent, if you're trying something and it's not working, well, a lot of times it's not working because you haven't done it long enough. You need to stick with it. And so I've always set goals. My first with going back to cycling, I said if I don't become a professional cyclist by the time I'm 23, I'm going to have to go to college. So that put this like pressure on me to be consistent, to be following the process. And then same with real estate. I said if I'm not making, what the top 20% are making within the first 3 years of the business, I'm going to stop and I'm going to go to school, become a firefighter. So I put that pressure on myself. And I think the same thing goes with like any prospecting plan that you set out to do. Give yourself time and set a reasonable time. So, like, if my farming this market, farming this neighborhood, if that doesn't provide results within 3 years, that's what I did. One of my first prospecting thing was farming the neighborhood I lived in, and I still do it to this day. I've expanded it, of course, but I would say it took me 2, 3 years before I got a listing or any action from that farm. And guess what I had to do? Every quarter, every quarter, I would hand deliver 1,000 printed newsletters, and they were 11 by 17, open fold. And it wasn't just about real estate. This was, it touched on real estate, of course, but it was very community based, very, very localized. We in our town, there's a river that comes through it. We did Petaluma River cleanups. We did neighborhood garage sale day. So it's like a trail, we print a list and you have all the garage sales and it's fun. Like, tons of homes do it. And there's all these garage sales all over the area. We always had, posted the events and things we were doing. So that took me 3 years before I got business. And now I've made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars off that farm. I've had some sellers come out of that and they've done 4 or 5 transactions with me now and they've referred their other people and it's like this tree. I remember got my real estate license through John Lumblow. He's not alive anymore. I mean, gosh, it was back in 2012. It was practically, I think we were using VHS tapes to do it. But he said do something and start off with a farm. And I know it sounds old fashioned, but I'm telling you, it's connecting. And I would just hand drop under the mats. I would not knock on doors. It's 1,000 homes, right? Walking them. Now we mail, but I still think that connection, being out in the community, I met so many people while I was doing that. So consistency, don't give up
Well,
and keep going
I
at it.
want to I want to point out this idea because I was you had mentioned that you were handing them out, and then you were mentioning there was other ways too, which you were participating in the community, doing volunteer
Yeah,
efforts, helping with
totally.
garage sales, and just anything you can do to get your name out there, and at the same time, hand delivering 1,000 1,000 newsletters, which was actually I like the idea that you did them bigger than the standard size too. Just makes it a little bit more interesting to hold and sort of harder to immediately throw away maybe. But the idea of putting the work in is I'm hearing just obviously as a professional athlete you're putting in a lot of reps, you're practicing fundamentals and advanced strategies
Totally.
too, but always going back to those. Cycling is no well, I know nothing about cycling personally, but I'm assuming it's no different from so many other sports where it's just a lot of practice, of course. So it's kind of even a silly thing to reflect on. But the idea of just repetition and reps, doing the reps and seeing those, and then by the way, not looking at it a year in, going, got no results. I've got nothing, and you're
Yep.
like, I still got to hand out 1,000 more of these next month, and I'm going to keep doing it until I get results because obviously
It's tough.
we know that that pathway should work over time. We know that it's not really a risky thing. It's just a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it worked out for you, hundreds of thousands of dollars in commissions.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's also something that as an athlete, you understand the work that's needed. So this is just like
Yeah.
putting in your reps at the gym.
Totally. And when I started that farm, I ran it up on a credit card, but I'll tell you, I mean, printing is so cheap. You print 1,000 brochures, it's super cheap. And John Lumlow said, he said quality over quantity. So he said his thing was go to 250 homes around you and knock and really establish those connections. I'm not a real knock or cold call kind of. I know I need to move in that direction. I need to become more personal or more forward, but I don't like when people knock on my door, so I don't really wanna do it. And, it just worked the way I did it. And so but yeah, like you said, repetition. And here's another really important thing. You only can do so much. My coach would always tell me, he said, the best realtors in the business, they have 3 to 5 prospecting methods. He said, "Steven, start off with 2 to 3, build them out, build a fence around them so they're like their own little ecosystem. They're working for them, for you, and then you can add on more. But first, build them out around it, make it bomb proof, and then go to your next one. And not all prospecting methods have to cost money either. So, speaking to like social media there. So if you're new in the business and you don't have a lot of funds, um, own the social media world. That alone, that, and of course open houses, that's a given. But as far as the print stuff, you just got to think about the return on your investment. If you get one deal, is it going to cover, and then how many deals you're going to get over time, of course, your career. So
Yeah, those are
yeah.
those are really, really great strategies. And also too, like the idea of doing these volunteer community outreach kind of programs oftentimes can be low cost to no cost, right? Like if you're offering to volunteer, in your case,
Totally.
to clean up, like a river or some waterway, or a stretch of the highway, or anything, or
Absolutely.
volunteering at a local shelter or whatever. Those things are usually low cost, because if you do invite your audience, I went to. Um, Sorry, I interrupted myself, but I went to one of the very best of those that I've witnessed. It was a Compass agent of all things here in Chicago. By the way, I also want to do a quick plug for something, and I can't remember the gentleman's name who runs it. But if you are a Compass agent, and we know there's a lot of you that listen, because we've had a million Compass agents on our show, because they're just taking over. But there's a great thing called the 6 a.m.er Club, which
Yeah.
which and the gentleman
Guy
that
Mike
runs it,
Guy Michaels,
Sky
Guy
Michaels.
Michaels is one. Yeah, he's great. He does Momentum Monday too. So he's a free coach for Compass. And I've gotten so
Yeah.
many golden nuggets from him. It's incredible.
And little
So,
plug for my
yeah.
interview with Sky Michaels, just one of the neatest guys I've ever had on our show. And if you're a Compass person, please take advantage of that. You're very lucky to have not you, Stephen, but the company is
Yes.
very lucky to have Sky. So please check out the 6 a.m.ers Club. Also, maybe if you're interested in not that I get paid to promote Compass as a company, but a good reason to consider them if you need some accountability. They've got a fun little
Totally.
way to do that. So anyway, but
Yeah.
back of course to Stephen. I'd be remiss if we didn't mention your amazing team as well. It's not just you. You've
Oh
built
yeah.
a wonderful group of people around you. Can you tell us a little bit about the team and sort of why you developed one?
Absolutely. Real quick, back to that the newsletter. This is just in the volunteering thing. This is just a very basic thing, but this shows you the power of that farm. You can take a great nonprofit in the area and you can go to them. So like we have Mentor Me or Relief Petaluma, and you can say, "Hey, Mentor Me, what's a fundraiser coming up or something that we can promote in our newsletter for you?" And we do it for free, and then of course, so that's great because you're doing something different. Our whole why is giving back, our team why. And so you're connecting with this whole organization by promoting them. And now our newsletter goes out to 10,000 homes. So these charities, these people are really benefiting from what we're doing. So it's like killing two birds with one stone, right? And so we always try to do that. We also have our preferred lender. He advertises in it. He's got his little section, so he helps pay for it. So think of stuff like that. You can have service providers pay for a lot of stuff. Um, so yeah, about the team. Having a team has been a huge thing for the Cozza team, of course. Like turning it into that has made a big difference in my life, and then of course in their lives as well. I was a workaholic the first, I would say, years of being in the business. I ended up going through a divorce. It really taxed my life, and that was obviously my own choice to be a workaholic. I could have, backed it down, but my coach, when I finally had a good coach, he taught me how to have systems and how to build a team. And so we've got our marketing. The first person I hired was a marketing person. And I don't know if that's very common, but I realized, well, I can handle working with clients, but the back end marketing stuff, the social media, all that, um, that's where we're getting our dips in business. So I hired a marketing lady who now has her real estate license, and our business more than doubled after that. Like that, it
Wow.
doubled. That was the year our business doubled. So, um,
Did
and
did
I
you
I
know
credit
that
it to
that
that.
was did you know that hiring a marketing person was, that, or not hiring a market, but identifying that's where the hole was in the business to fill, that you can't do everything and be everything as a solo practitioner. Obviously, there's going to be things that you enjoy doing or that you're good at, and other things that aren't necessarily easy for you to do or that you want to do.
Totally, yeah. It was the consistency thing. I kept going back to what Peg told me in the beginning. You got to be consistent, and that's where I was lacking, was the consistency with the marketing, the prospecting, with the stuff that I didn't do personally. And my coach said, "Well, calculate how much you make an hour. Find out what you make an hour, and then ask yourself if it's worth spending your time on that. And if it's not, then hire someone to do it." Um, that was really, I would say, a change point in my career was when I started treating my business like a business. Because far often, too many times, us agents, we get stuck in the business. We got to step out of it and work on our business. So I recommend anybody listening, take an hour a day. You can always find after you do your power hour or before you do your power hour, spend an hour to, so there's 2 hours there now. Spend an hour working on your business, not in your business. And once you start working on your business on a daily basis, that's where you're going to start seeing a lot of growth because you're not going to be stuck in it. When you're stuck in it, that's when you start to see these big dips and slow periods. But when you really work on your business, that's where you start to grow and consistently have business. That's what I realized at least.
I remember learning in college. There's a Stephen Covey book. I can't remember if it's First Things First or the Habits of Highly Successful People. Whatever it was, he had this matrix that I thought was something's very hard to do. I think for me, but really, really important that I think sort of speaks to what you just said, which is he called it the urgency versus importance matrix, which was really just four boxes. Something comes at you, you put it in one of these four boxes, and that gives you an idea of how and when to respond to it. So it's just because something flies at you in the form of an email, a text, a phone call, doesn't necessarily mean that it's urgent. It means it feels urgent because it just came in. We see it. We're our brains are wired to want to solve problems, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best course of action at that particular time. And you just sort of run it through how important is this? How urgent is it? And then you decide when to respond back to it. I imagine as an athlete, you were constantly having to evaluate, especially, while you're racing, what's important, what's urgent, what do I need to take action on now? What adjustments do I need to make? And there's probably, you probably also learn just really great decision-making strategies when you're competing at that level. It's all about making decisions in the moment that are best for you, best for the team. Um,
For sure.
can you talk a little bit about when things fly at you, how do you sort of determine this I got to reply to right away, or this can hold off even though this might seem urgent in the moment?
Yeah.
How do you make those decisions?
Well, I got to tell you, I'm still kind of learning that in real estate. In cycling, it was pretty easy because it was one focus. It's like everything's for cycling. With real estate, everything's for real estate, but there's volunteering, there's this, there's that, there's all these different things that call for your attention or, trying to do too much. And so I'm still learning that. But something that I recently heard Warren Buffett say, so the story goes, he was in his private jet and the pilot, his pilot asked him, "Hey, Warren, how do you prioritize your time?" And Warren goes, "Well, to the jet, most 25 important things to you in your life. Achieve, you want to be a better father, you want to be better at selling real estate, you want to be healthier, more fitness. Take 25 of those things and make a list of it." And Warren goes, "Okay, now that you have that list of 25 things, take 5 of them, take the top 5 of those 25 and make a list of the top 5." And then now Warren goes, "Okay, now that you have the top 5 things you want to achieve or do or be in your life, take those other 20 and throw, because life is finite. We have enough time." He says, "If you can just focus on those 5 things, you're going to do the best you can at them. And maybe by the time you die, you'll be able to achieve them. Maybe you won't, but at least you're going to know you did your best. But if you have the other 20 there, you're not going to be good at anything." So that really hit me hard because I was such a scattered agent in the beginning. And I think it was okay in the beginning, but for my life, it wasn't okay. And for other things that are really important to me outside of real estate, it was not okay. So now I've got more of a grip on that, and I'm doing what he says to do. I'm taking Warren Buffett's advice there.
That is great, a great lesson, a great strategy, and so 100% true with what I've seen is that you really can only be good at a couple of things in life anyway. If you really, as you know, as
Totally.
an athlete, you couldn't probably be as effective as a competitive cyclist versus, oh, I also want to play baseball and kind of do those things at the same time. Obviously, that'd be
Totally.
almost impossible, if not impossible, to be at the level that you could be if you just focused on one. So I totally understand that, and athletes do get that. They understand they have to sort of put. Again, I'm speaking as a professional athlete, which I am not, but putting the blinders on and literally just doing what's right in front of them that they know is going to guarantee success. And realtors have to wear a million different
Totally.
hats, like you were saying. So it is tough because it isn't a singular. There are, oh my gosh, I have to, take care of the marketing for my business. I have to take care of the customer service. I have to, also these things are flying at me in real time that I have to reply to. So
Absolutely.
it is tough. And we acknowledge that challenge. And that's why,
And
having a
I
coach.
suffer from ADHD too, so it's like I've got that added element of hardship, and with social media now and all this stuff, so you really got to learn the skills to focus on one thing at a time. Yeah,
I love that. It's so funny because I think when we talk whenever I've had a professional athlete on, there's that fantasy part of me that goes, they're going to know something I have never heard before, and that's going to be the key that our audience is going to be like, that's it. And it's not
totally,
that those things don't exist; it's that they do exist, those things, and they are what we already know and just need to be reminded of, which is fundamentals, discipline, habit. And staying on target and being coachable, having a coach. Do,
absolutely.
do you find that you are as coachable today as you were when you started and really needed probably more help to get your business off the ground than you need today? Do you feel like you're just as coachable today as you were then?
Yeah, I think so. I get my I have to be careful because continued education is an important part of every week of my business. But I got to be careful with. There's so many trainings with Compass. They have so many trainings. They have the Compass Academy, and it's limitless. So I have to kind of pick and choose. So sometimes I'll do Mondays. I like the podcast, like keeping it real, because you can sit in your car and driving from one thing to the next, but it can really eat up a lot of your time. So if I can't drive and listen to it, it's kind of a challenge because once I'm in the office, I don't have a lot of time to sit there. So I would say my coaching now is our podcast, like keeping it real. Those are kind of the Momentum Mondays too. They keep me on my toes, but I try to grab little golden nuggets here and there, and not so much new prospecting ideas, but things to say like different scripts, different ways to talk to clients, and all different types of stuff. So it's not just about more prospecting things. There's little things you can learn that make a big difference. Like the gal you had on the other day, who did 55 deals in 2 years. That does the VA stuff. Allie, I forget her
Yeah.
last name, but
Allie the agent.
she's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Allie, I got her checklist, and we use checklists too, so it's cool to see what the differences were there. But I loved her part about the frequently asked question, the videos. Um, we're totally going to do that, and we're going to also post them on social media as well, just because we're always looking for good video content. And so, and we, I went through that. Actually, went through. You've had her on, Kim Rittenberg. She
Kim
does the
Ripberg.
power.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I took her video making course. I'm always trying to learn and get better, and taking her video making course was great. So kind of one thing
Wow.
leads to the next, and before you know it, you're just like this like amazing top-notch realtor that really knows their stuff, and people start to see you as like the expert in the field and someone who really knows what they're doing. That's
I also
important.
want to. I want to honor you for something you said at the beginning, which is related to this about being coachable. Is you went to the most successful agents in your area and said, "Hey, I'd love to chat with you and just get a sense." Now, really, what you're doing is going to the competition and saying, "Hey, tell me what you do differently so I can learn."
Totally.
And you know what? The top agent in your area said, "Yeah, I'll tell you," because
Yep.
she, out of the goodness of her heart, doesn't see other agents as competition. I'm sort of just putting myself in her mind. I could be wrong, but I have found that really it is not uncommon that I bring on a top producer who gives that exact same idea of when I first started, I went to the top people and I said, well, how are you doing this? It is, and this whole podcast is exactly that idea too. And you know what? I never get a no. I mean, maybe once a year, somebody says, I don't really want to talk to your audience about what I do. Everyone else is like, yeah, totally, just tell everything. And understanding that people in their market are also going to hear this and possibly be more competition for them. But I find that top agents are typically really like really generous with their time. You're being generous with your time here as well. So I just wanted to give you a shout out for
Oh,
doing
thanks.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important. I knew it was kind of like the only way to really fast track it. I didn't have a lot of time. I had a credit thing going up. I had started, and so I'm like, what do I need to do? Just tell me, people.
Yeah. Probably saved,
So,
and you had a time, yeah, you said you had a 3-year timeline of being a top
yeah,
20% producer within 3 years. That is an aggressive goal, but you made it,
yeah.
and you've continued to do much even much better than that
Eh,
even. But this
eh,
idea of that is talking to a top producer helps, like you said, it saved you probably years of trial and error, I
oh.
would assume.
Oh yeah, let me tell you, so setting goals are really important. Obviously, business plans are very important. Every time I've set one of those limits, like I got to do it by this point, I've somehow always hit it, and it's like I even forget about it sometimes. But like this year, we hit 1 million GCI, so that was
Wow.
that was amazing. I wanted to do that by 2023. I made that goal like 7 or something years ago. I wanted to be the top in our office. We hit that, or I hit that. Um, but the biggest thing, so real quick, because I know we have limited time, but when you talk about like learning from other agents, Compass, I've learned from them too because they do statistics, and Sky Michaels taught a class on business planning, which I teach to my agents now too. And if anybody wants help with business planning, I've got the stuff to send to you. So it's part of the Power Hour tracker, but I'll send the other stuff too. Um, and what we learned from the stats that Compass was producing was that out of it was 95 agents that decided not to follow the business plan. 95% of agents do not follow their business plan throughout the year, and 5% do. The 5% who did follow their business plan throughout the year made as much as the 95% made selling real estate.
Wow.
So that's really huge data. That's pretty impactful information. And it kind of tells you something like business plans are important. So sticking
And
to it.
there is something kind of invisible and magical about writing down a goal, and like you said, maybe not even reviewing it every day, every month, every quarter, maybe not reviewing it at all, but getting it written down at least once. There is, and I've seen different stats on goal setting, and you never know what to believe or what not to believe, but it certainly can't hurt to write down your goals,
Yeah.
and even if you never look at them again. But you're right, there is something that sometimes, like, you can't really explain why just writing it down seems to sort of manifest it. I mean, there's lots
So
of
weird.
ideas about why. You're right, it's weird.
It's a it it's weird, like, I did the ninja, agent
Yeah,
training. I did
ninja
one of
selling.
those
Yeah, yeah.
3 ninja selling, and that was cool. I did that years ago, and they had you write down, I will make," and I was writing it says, "I wanna make," and at the time, I put $350,000 a year. I wanna make 350,000, and I wrote that down, and you have to write it down, like, on, like, 5 pages, like, hundreds of times. I wanna make 350,000, and just keep writing it. And, I did. The next year, that's what I did, and it was like
Amazing.
it was like exactly that number. It was like within like $1,000. It was so I we do that every year now. We write down what we wanna make at the start in the business plan, and we keep it, and, it's so bizarre, but it works. So manifestation, positive energy, all that stuff, get your flow going, it's all good.
Yeah, it seems to activate something in the brain where the brain's, again, whatever you believe, whatever anybody believes spiritually or philosophically about, we're not here to debate that, but there is something that seems to happen. The brain somehow learns that, oh, this is what we're aiming for, and unconsciously behind the scenes, it starts to figure out ways to bring that into one's life if it's a realistic
Yep.
idea, I guess. And it's, again, my,
Mhm.
my thought about whether you believe in goal setting or this magical things that can happen or not is, what's the harm in writing it down several
Yeah,
hundred
right,
times. I mean, clearly ninja selling is a very well respected training program in this industry, and it's not because it doesn't work. It must
right.
work
No,
to
true.
be as successful as
Absolutely.
it is. So I love that. Thank you for that. I wanted to
Cool.
I wanted to ask about listing presentations, only because at the beginning you did mention that that was a major focus for you, was being obsessed with that, which again is a great thing in my mind to be obsessed with, because of course everybody wants listings, and if you are
Totally.
going to expect a high close ratio when you have listing appointments, you better have a pretty pretty darn good listing presentation, because you could make the assumption that every time you go to a listing presentation, there's also another agent you might be competing with. It's just a great thing to always, and you're a competitor, so you're used to competing. So I'm curious about, just, you don't have to give away all your secrets, of course, but how do you approach a
Oh, it's
listing
fine.
presentation that you think might be different from your competitors?
Yeah, well, you have to think about what a seller really needs and wants, and every seller is going to be different. I started to learn based off of their personality. So first thing is we send out a seller questionnaire. And the seller questionnaire is I always send like this pre-email before the appointment as like a reminder with the seller questionnaire. They fill it out and it gives me a really good head start on understanding, things about the house, things about them, things about what they want. Their needs are the most important thing, right? So if you can figure out in the personality test, the DISC test, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the DISC test, DISC. Learn that, study it, do it on yourself, do it on your kids, do it on your wife, husband, partner, and really learn how to read people's personalities, because that's the most important thing. When you get into a listing presentation, it's not about selling yourself or your company. It's about when you leave that listing presentation, them saying, man, I like that person. I want to be friends with them, but also them feeling like you were able to speak their language, like they've been heard. So if it's a C type personality, it's going to be more like an engineer, calculative, wants to see stats and numbers. If you can speak that language, you're going to make them feel safer. If it's a personality, I's and S's are my favorite, because S's are like, nurses or teachers. They're motherly. I's are like, they'll meet everybody at the bar and get their name. They just want to sit down and drink tea. All those things are important. And then on top of it, getting better at listening. So you can't understand anything about what they need or want if you can't hear what they're saying. So listen, and by listening, it gives them when you listen more, you control the situation. So listening, you get more information, and then last but not least, being able just to offer the most value, because like it's just like any trade. If you have a painter that comes over and says, I'm just going to do it in one coat, it's this price, this and that, or if you have another painter say, we have a whole team, we're super professional, your paint job's going to last, we do an amazing job, we don't just spray and go, you're going to go with the one, even if they're more money, that's more thorough, gives you more confidence. Um, so that's the same thing. You've got to offer value. So for me, I'm lucky with Compass. We offer the company itself gives us the tools to offer so much value. Starting with Compass Concierge, being able to remodel stuff for the people at no expense to them until we close, all that stuff. There's so many things, but have your value that you offer very clear and easy for them to see. Um, and then the last thing is I don't have a set commission. The commission I charge, they have options. So, but depending on what fits their needs, they can choose. The lowest option is still the best option for me. It's still 6%. But they have definite options that they can choose from. So,
I like that
uh,
too, because then you get their buy-in. You get their buy-in
yeah,
of, this is what I think makes the most sense for me. It's not a one size fits all. It allows people
yeah.
to customize their experience with you.
And yeah, and actually, I always get at least 3%. So it's 5.5% option, 6% option, and a 7% option. The lowest I'll get is 3% for listing. Buyer agent always gets 2.5%. But yeah, when you give someone an option, there's really no negotiating that has to really happen. They're going to
Right.
just choose one, usually
That's
by default, and they're all good. It's all good value.
That is a brilliant thought. I am so sorry. That didn't even occur to me. When you give somebody an option, you just said something very profound. When you give somebody an option, it basically removes the urge to negotiate. It does, I guess people could still
Oh yeah,
technically come back and say, well, let's try to negotiate, because of course that's what people do in real estate. But it
yes,
certainly reduces the frequency of those kind of conversations. So that is you just
absolutely.
said something incredibly profound. So, and by the way, guys,
Oh
this
yeah,
is why when you go to websites and there's usually some sort of software service offering, you will almost always see three options. And there is a reason
Totally.
for that. And that it's not because we all want three options. It's because the psychology of making decisions knows that three options feels optimal to the actual consumer. It feels like they have agency, control, power over their decision making strategy, and it makes them feel more comfortable. So, anyway, just wanted to step on that up for a moment because obviously that is I have never heard any of our other guests have options for listing clients, and boy,
Yeah,
I imagine
you
maybe you can do
gotta
that on the buy side too. It's
you
brilliant.
gotta have options. You gotta have options, and the worst options gotta be still very favorable for you. And it's I recommend going into negotiating. I was looking it up. It's called the CREN. It's CRE. It's basically certified real estate negotiator, the CREN certification. If you take that 2-hour test class, you'll know everything you need to know about negotiating for real estate, buyers and sellers. It's easy. I make all my agents do it. It's amazing. So I'm
I
not
love
trying
it.
to sell their product or anything, but you don't have to do all these years of learning how to negotiate. Just take that 2-hour thing. You'll learn all the tricks. And so, yeah.
I love it. Stephen, I could talk to you all day. I'm fascinated by you and I are similar beings in the way we think and act. So I could do go on and on for hours and hours. You don't have that kind of time managing a team and managing your clients and doing all of the great things that you do for your community and for and by the way too, we should mention that where Stephen lives and practices, Sonoma, Marin County, also, the parts of San Francisco Bay. If you are an agent and you have clients, if that's a feeder market for you, where clients are either moving from there to your market or vice versa, this is a great person to connect with. Maybe you guys can trade referrals. Maybe you guys could develop and I say guys, of course, meaning any agent, men, women, or other. So please reach out to Stephen if you feel that you could add value, or if you're looking for a referral partner in that area. I was at a breakfast yesterday with the top producing team here in Illinois, and they are in now 6 markets. They've opened offices in 6 markets, and they talked about the markets where they don't have offices in. They have such strong relationships with their referral agents and partners, and they said that has been the secret to their success, because when they do refer business, they need to make sure that that experience is consistent, whether it's their client or none they've referred. So Stephen and his team are elite, top white glove team. They are among the very, very, very best in their market. So please reach out to Stephen if you feel that you could maybe have a client that Stephen would be of service to, or his team. Stephen, what's the best way an agent who wants to connect with you? And also, we talked about you have some giveaways for them with respect to some of your processes, your power hour, which I love. What's the best way, just to remind our audience how to get that information from you?
Yeah, you can email me at S as in Sam and then Koza, my last name, at Koza Homes, homes being plural.com. Koza at kozahomes.com. Or you can get me on Instagram and I'll get to you that way. But best way, just shoot me an email and I'll get all that stuff out to you. And we're also looking to refer people in other markets too. The referral business is something that I was late to the game on. I basically just started building that out about a year ago, believe it or not. So definitely wanting to network more with other agents. So yeah.
Yeah, and find them on social at Cozza Team, which is the handle that you can find most of them. We will have links to all of their social channels on our show notes. And I also just want to make one final observation, and this is a soft skill, but I think a really, really important one. Whenever I'm on with an agent who I can identify this particular skill, we haven't talked about it, and I don't know that we need to speak too much about it, but I wanted to give you a shout out. I want everyone to pay attention to Steven's tonality when he talks. Does he have a calming presence, or does he have an activating presence? To me, in my opinion, his voice, his tone, the way he communicates is very calming and relaxing. And I will tell you that during real estate transactions, Emotions run hot and cold, and I'm not here to say one size fits all, that every agent needs to be speak in the same manner that Stephen speaks, but let's remember how our voices and the way that we and communicate, how it impacts, right? What we say, we know that the data is really clear. What we say, not that important. How we say it, critically important. Like 90% of the actual effect of our communication is the way in which we say something. So the idea, I just wanted to point out that Stephen has a very
Thank you.
calming voice and calming presence, and you feel relaxed when you're talking with him.
Ah,
And I will say that if you don't have that reaction when you're with your clients, you can learn. These are skills. This is not, well, I was born as an activated person, because I'm kind of an activated person, but you can learn how to calm down, how to relax, and realizing how important that is to be able to communicate. So Stephen, I just wanted to honor you for that. Maybe it's part of the California thing. You've got a little bit of that
yeah.
California relaxed, but obviously as a professional athlete, you're a super intense dude. It's not that you're not intense. You're able though to focus that intensity in a way that doesn't come across as making your clients anxious, or at least making me
Yeah.
anxious as the host of the show. So I applaud
Cool.
you for that. It's a soft skill. It's probably not something that a lot of people would pay much attention to, but I believe it's very important. So you've been a
That's a
great,
good
yeah.
That's a good point that you pointed out. I think, yeah, it's I can be very energetic too for sure, but I think a lot of times working with clients, I tell my wife, gosh, I wish I was as good as with you as I am with my clients, because like I go into like client mode and then it's like I'm very calm, and it is interesting that you bring that up. A coach once told me, he said, cut commission out of it. Take it out. If you can learn to cut commission out of it and focus on what it's going to take to get them to where they want to be, and continue to tell your clients that, what's it going to take to get you to where you want to be, that's what I want to do for you. Stop worrying about the commission, because that will come.
Perfectly said. Great place to end up. So, everyone, reach out to Stephen, get some of his resources that he is so generously sharing, the same resources he shares with his team. And also reach out to him if you think you could be a great referral partner. And who knows, maybe down the road, if you're an agent in that local market, maybe they will be looking for more team members. They're not currently right now, but this is obviously the Cozza team is the team to watch, because they are just crushing it out there. And by the way, he is not in an easy market to compete. He is in one of the toughest markets, but that's what a competitor loves. Loves a
Yeah.
challenge, and you are already there. So congratulations on all your success. I want to say thank you on
Thanks.
behalf of our audience to Stephen and his team for taking time out today to be so generous to help our audience. So let's all thank him, sending him some virtual love, but also let him know what you thought about his performance on the show, which of course is going to be lots of praise. So let him know how great he was here, and also. On behalf of Stephen and myself, we want to thank you, the audience. We want to say thank you for making it to the end of the episode. Please tell a friend. Think of one other agent that could benefit from this. We know 2023 is tough. This is a tough year for every agent out there. Don't let anyone fool you. It's tough. Even the people that are smiling are working a little harder this year than they normally would be. So let's help our fellow agents as well. Rising, what do they say? What's the expression? A rising tide raises all ships. So let's help the industry, and help me too. Might as well tell other agents about the podcast. We appreciate it, and I thank you in advance for that. So tell a friend, and also thank you. Let's just say one last time, thank you to Stephen for coming on our show. Steve, it was great chatting with you. Such a pleasure, and I hope to have you back in the future. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks, DJ.